Hey, folks, and welcome back to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. How are you doing there, Adrian?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Glenn?
Doing good. I like the tie-dye and the beads and all that.
Oh, yeah.
It's very apropos for today's subject, which is the Monterey Pop Festival, which is something that happened in June of 1967 and essentially was the debut of a lot of very big artists for the 60s, or the latter half of the 60s. So the Monterey Pop Festival came together with Derek Taylor running the show, who was from Apple Corps in London, and Lou Adler came on board to produce the thing. John Phillips on Lou Adler's roster also got really involved. And actually, John Phillips wrote the Scott McKenzie hit, If You're Going to San Francisco. It's funny, that song, though, it was written specifically to promote Monterey Pop. And one of the big problems that they had when they were trying to get this thing off the ground was they couldn't get the San Francisco bands to sign on with it because nobody trusted Lou Adler. They looked at him and said, that guy's from the LA scene. He's a slickster, and he's just going to take us for all, he's going to charge too much. He's going to turn this into a big for-profit scheme, and which at the time was looked down upon. So they wrote that song. Jerry Garcia is on record as saying, I think he just kind of saw through it, and he just kind of did this when he heard it, which a lot of the people did in San Francisco. So they were really getting nowhere trying to get any of the bands to sign on, like the Dead or the Jefferson Airplane or Quicksilver and any of those guys, Big Brother, until they got Paul Simon to go and kind of work as an in-between. And he got really comfortable with the Grateful Dead's management. Like they became very friendly, him and Danny Rifkin, which is one of the two guys, along with Rock Scully, that kind of got the Grateful Dead off the ground in the early days, besides Bear, of course. Paul finally convinced them to sign on. It's pretty much how it went. And Bear went along and made a particular kind of LSD for the occasion called Monterey Purple. Apparently he was set up in the backstage, ready to just hand it out to anybody that wanted it, which was basically everybody. And so that's how that went. So we thought it'd be interesting to go back and take a look. There's so much already said about the Monterey Pop Festival. We're going to take a look at a couple of the films from it, and then I'm going to go over some of the records that I have that are kind of related to that era.
I think it's Tommy Smothers.
He's introducing Moby Grape, which is a band that just had the worst luck imaginable. Everything that looked like it was going in their direction ended up not working out at all. They got signed by Columbia Records. They put out this album. They had lots of great songs on it. The problem is that the record company decided to release 5 singles at once. And so the radio stations would say, well, what are we supposed to do with this? Which one are we going to play? And there wasn't any real guidance on that. And so all 5 flopped. You don't do that if you're trying to promote a new band or a new album. You don't put out 1 million singles all at once. So they unfortunately learned that. Other things that happened, they got a really terrible manager who was also the Airplanes manager for a while. And I'm not going to mention his name because he's still alive and he's still a jerk. He's still causing problems for the what's left of Moby Grape today. So they could not even get their act together to sign off on being recorded for this. They didn't end up in the movie, but there is this clip of them playing. So we're going to check that out now.
Yay!
Tommy is fascinated by the crowd.
First group tonight is kind of like in a more difficult position than other groups because everybody's getting settled and someone has to start the show. And this next group, I think we're very happy that they decided because nobody else wanted to go first.
Come to the light, Tommy. Come to the light. So I believe this is Saturday night that they're starting.
Let's make it extra warm.
So not the beginning of the whole festival, but Saturday night.
For Columbia recording artist, Moby Grape. Let's get, come on.
One of the very few clips that exists of Moby Grape.
There you are. Let's hear it.
Do you know anything about Moby Grape, Adrian? Have you ever heard their music?
I listened to their albums a couple times before. I think they were walking
I'll talk to you later.
just haven't put my chance yet. Into the tune. Jennifer was thinking turning the street.
Yeah. So I think that's all they have for that group. Yeah, so that guy doing the lead singing was Skip Spence.
All right.
And he's famous because he was in the Jefferson Airplane as their drummer, their first drummer. He's the drummer on Airplane Takes Off, just before Surrealistic Pillow. And then he got poached from Jefferson Airplane to join Moby Grape. And so, let me see, there he is back there. Now, unfortunately, he kind of went the way of Syd Barrett and other visionaries that were very creative, but whether it was drugs or some psychological issue that was in the background that got brought up by the drugs, or maybe the actual getting into the music machine and then having all these terrible things happen to the band, which any of that could have caused problems. But as they were recording their second album, he came into the studio one day with an axe and tried to go after the producer, I think, or one of the bandmates, something like that. And he had to be carted off. And he spent a bunch of time in Bellevue. Got out. He made a solo album called Ore, which is pretty well acclaimed. But he seems a little fractured, kind of like Sid. Unfortunately for him, he passed away at 53. I think it was 1999. I remember the news. And he had been homeless for a while, probably due to being ill and just not being able to take care of himself very well. So rest in peace, Skip Spence. He's definitely an artist worth checking out, as is Moby Grape. Their first album is great. In any discussion about 1967 San Francisco, you have to talk about Moby Grape a little bit. So let me go over some other things that I have here. This album is a condensed Jimi Hendrix set, because I think Jimmy played for about 40 minutes. And this is one side. It's got Wild Thing on it, though.
Yeah.
And then Otis Redding's entire set, which was only 15 minutes long, sadly. But it's one of my favorite sets in live music history, really. So this is a nice album.
One of the DVDs I had focus on Otis Redding and Jimi Hendrix. There's that, there's the movie, and then there's Outtakes, which is longer than the movie. And,
I'm sure. Yeah.
I think better in a lot of ways too, actually.
Yeah. Well, the movie was only like an hour and 15 minutes or something. It's a really short movie. When I realized that, I was surprised because we're talking about 3 days of music.
Yeah.
Granted, everybody had a short set, but maybe just the fact that it had never been done before and there was no template to follow. You know, this was kind of the first big festival. By the time Woodstock came around, they knew to make it a 3-album set, you know, and that movie is much longer too. I think the Woodstock movie is closer to 2, maybe even 3 hours. This had just come out when the festival was on. I mean, literally just hit the stores in America. Great timing. Jimmy's first album, for those who don't know. If you were curious about Otis Redding, this is a great little compendium on vinyl. I don't believe it's on CD, but if you happen to see this while flipping through the racks in your local record store, it's a nice little compilation of Otis. It's before Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, so it doesn't include that. It's got everything pretty much up to there. Grateful Dead, also there. Grateful Dead were stuck directly in between The Who and Jimi Hendrix, both of whom destroyed their instruments and put on a whole show of just destruction at the end of their sets.
It's very new to the crowd that was there. Never seen anybody smash their guitars before, I don't think.
That's the thing. Yeah. So they all just went on, did their set, and that was that. And actually, The Who and the Dead both played Smokestack Lightning and like one other blues track they had in common in their sets, which was kind of funny now when you think about it. But this was all the Dead had out at the time, their first album. Very zippy little album. This was the new Jefferson Airplane album at the time.
Yeah.
So
classic pillow.
So this is really kind of a perfect ground zero when this festival went on and when all this great music was starting to come out. The real turning point. You know, I mean, albums in '67 didn't look like albums in '66. You know, they were much more colorful.
Yeah.
More psychedelia going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's a funny thing about the Dead. They were instrumental in getting all the other San Francisco bands to sign on, thanks to the whole Paul Simon connection. You know, they just kind of fell in line. And all of them had said, we're not going to get filmed for this because that's one stone too far to be tossing. You know, fine, we'll play your thing, but no, you cannot do that. And Janice at the last moment decided, no, you know, I want to be in this thing. This is my moment. And who can blame her? Because it was her moment. Nobody knew who she was, and she blew everybody off the stage, you know. But what happened to kind of mitigate the fact that it wasn't entirely nonprofit, as in the tickets weren't free, it wasn't a free event or anything like that, was the Dead management did work it out so that the college right next door, I think it was Monterey College, they had a football field right there. They let people camp on it, and they also set up a secondary stage where some of the artists could go jam, you know, kind of off stage for people that hadn't gotten in. And so there were regular jams going on there, you know. I know Bob Weir met Jimi Hendrix, one of those things, you know. Said, wow, this guy can play guitar. Like, yes, he can, you know. And after the festival, what had happened, one of the promotional things was Fender amps had gone ahead and donated all of the back line, all right? All of those amps ended up back in San Francisco, and they got used at a solstice festival, which was just a few days later, June 21, an outdoor event, a free concert. They said, here you go, we got a back line, and all the bands that were there was, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But eventually they went and they gave back every single amp to Fender, except for one, which had gotten lost in the shuffle. And frankly, losing just one amp out of the entire Monterey Pop Festival, I think is a pretty good record.
Well, I've been seeing this on a DVD for a while, 3 DVD set of Monterey Pop. But it does have an interactive menu where you can see all the credits, all the musicians that played in each of the songs.
So yeah, there's a lot of very interesting music to come out of that festival. Of course, I always recommend Jimi Hendrix's set, but also Otis Redding's set.
There's 2 of the 3 DVD set that I have.
Oh yeah,
Jimmy and Otis.
Very nice. I think that's going to be it for us today. If you haven't seen any parts of the Monterey Pop Festival, it's worth taking a look for the historic purposes. As you can see, the audio might be a little hit or miss, but it's definitely worth seeing people's reactions to this stuff. This is really the first time they've seen this kind of technicolor situation. By June '67, psychedelia was in full bloom, and this really helps elevate the status of a lot of later to be legendary acts. So worth your time to take a look anyway.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
If you could ever think of anything you'd like us to react to or take a look at or study, please let us know in the comments below. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more of our antics here. And please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. In the meantime, if you have any other feedback for us, leave that as well. And we'll see what we can do. So till next time, take care, folks.
Folks later.